Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Victor, and he gave me a donation and told me to keep up the good work. And with no defined topic, I want to give my response to the gynocentric media that's listening out there. More specifically, mostly the feminist sympathizers and manginas that work in television, newspaper, radio, as well as the film industry. This is my message to you, the employees of the lamestream media. You somehow think that the television networks and existing media companies will be there forever, paying you six-figure salaries and providing you the job security that you're accustomed to. You go out and you film feminists at their events like Slutwalk, and you cover their issues and what's important to them. But at the same time, I rarely hear you covering topics that are important to men. It's all about covering what's important to women instead. But what you don't realize is that the advertising dollars that you rely upon to keep your jobs will drop and dry up as more and more people cut their cable cords. Many people that I know haven't had a cable connection in up to 5 to 10 years, and their numbers are growing. Eventually, the only people that will watch television news and read the newspapers will be baby boomers. And even now, they're learning how to use tablets and laptops to access the alternate media. So watch out as your days on the air are numbered, and there won't be a job there waiting for you unless you make it for yourself. That's the thing I never liked about the well-paid hosts and producers that I once worked with. They relied upon the networks and channels to pay them a large salary, even if they weren't bringing in a good-sized audience. The lamestream media is all about providing solid and stable income for its employees. Well, those days are basically coming to an end. And the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation is currently shutting down more and more channels and firing more and more staff. But to all the TV personalities that sympathize with feminists, you can always choose to join the ranks of the new media, like Rebel Media, which I'm also putting a link to in the description below. And Rebel Media came from Sun Media, which was shut down because they couldn't make enough advertising dollars, and they weren't making enough money to have their channel pushed out by cable companies. So as more people cut their cable cords, the more channels will fail. And the more you feminist sympathizers and manginas out there will lose your jobs. Ezra Levant used to work at the Sun News Network here in Toronto until it was shut down earlier this year. And Levant, according to other TV channels, was called an entertainer instead of a proper journalist. They tried to destroy his credibility and said that he wasn't covering the stories that people wanted to hear. But the people like Levant that used to work for the Sun News Network were combative, controversial, and contrarian. And they believed in freedom of speech. So after Sun Media failed, Levant created Rebel Media to give a voice to people that wouldn't be heard on the mainstream media. People like Laura Southern, who did a hit piece against the Vancouver Slutwalk for Rebel Media. And Levant was also one of the few people that got to interview Roosh V when he came to Toronto a few weeks ago. Those were stories that many men in the manosphere wanted to hear, but the mainstream media was too much about protecting women and its female audience to promote the stories that men want to hear. That's the great thing about social media as well as YouTube. Men can finally start talking about the things that matter to us. And today you and the mainstream criticize us, but I bet in the future you'll basically become anti-feminists and try to take our side as you lose your jobs at the so-called official news outlets and have nothing left to fall back on. Media production skills can take decades to build up, but if you don't use them on a regular basis, then you often get rusty. So I'm making the prediction that you idiots in the lamestream media will join the ranks of people producing content on YouTube, and most of you will fail miserably at it because you're probably still expecting to get a big fat paycheck for doing very little actual production work. But to make a living here on YouTube, you'll actually have to work 2 or 3 times harder than you did in the mainstream media. And here there are no safety nets and government employment insurance to basically help you. The best thing that will happen when you're fired and let go by your media outlets is that all those feminists that once had a voice on national television will lose their platforms. And I can't wait for that day to happen. When the Roosh V insanity was going on here in Toronto, there was a video that showed a troll harassing the mainstream reporter known as Shauna Hunt from Cable Pulse 24. And I'm also putting a link to that video in the description below. And unfortunately for Shauna Hunt, Cable Pulse 24 will eventually flatline and be dead in 5 to 10 years, along with her career. Gone will be the days of her going out with her cameraman to film her shenanigans. And Shauna Hunt is the same reporter that got the engineer fired for saying F her right in the P. And quite honestly, Shauna, I can't wait for the day when they take your narcissistic news platform away and you have to work tirelessly to get what you once had back. And hopefully by then, Rebel Media will grow and make it so big and take over the local news market share, and they'll make it so you'll never actually have a chance to work at the media profitably ever again. Newsflash for you, Shauna Hunt. CP24, the network that you work for, has only over 100 subscribers on YouTube. And City TV, the channel that you used to be part of, with regards to the same network, only has 14,000 subscribers. CBC, CDTV, as well as CP24 all have terrible strategies going forward with regards to social media. You're all still relying on people paying their cable bills, as well as advertiser dollars to a lesser extent, to keep your bloated salaries. And young millennials are cutting the cords like never before. Netflix and YouTube are going to kill you, and I can't wait for it soon enough. People don't want to sit there and watch you show up on your narcissistic little news platform doing the 6 o'clock news. You're a dinosaur, and you just don't realize it yet. And I don't think that feminists that have Slutwalk and other feminist rallies have figured out that when the mainstream media finally goes off the air, no one will care about their pathetic little rallies. And no one seems to go out to them anymore anyways. Last year I went and filmed Slutwalk and there were no people watching it, just the participants and the cameras. And this year I think Slutwalk was actually cancelled in Toronto because I didn't see any videos covering it on YouTube as well as on any of the television networks. It doesn't matter that Slutwalk started in Toronto. If women don't get attention when they march down the street, dressed like sluts, and there aren't any cameras on them, then they won't put out the effort to do so. Do you hear that, mainstream media? The less you Muppets are out there filming these feminists in action on the streets, the less they'll be there in the media. Last year, City TV also put out a video about rape culture in video games. Imagine if they had never actually done that story to begin with. Imagine if many of the print publications that print stories that are gynocentric and against men no longer print those stories or publish them online either. All of a sudden, the man-hating culture will basically start to disappear. So that's why I have zero sympathy for people involved in the lamestream media. Another thing that I always found interesting is that men generally did camera for news reporting. And it's one of the few positions where a man doing that job is called a cameraman. Firemen are called firefighters. Policemen are called police officers. But when I did camera and television, even the producers, the female ones, mentioned a camera person, they basically referred to us as cameramen. Looking back, I didn't appreciate that action or think too hard that women didn't put 20 or 30 pound cameras on their shoulders and walk around interviewing people. To me, it always seemed like it was a male job. The mainstream media is also increasingly being harassed by video trolls and they can't seem to do anything about it. F for right in the P is just the beginning. Because when you're doing live television and people know that they can mess up the story and scream profanities at the camera, there isn't a single thing you can do about it. Unless, of course, you want to start doxing people that interrupt your on-air broadcast and have them fired. Going after men and getting them fired is pretty petty and low, and I hope you, Shauna Hunt, as well as the other reporters that destroyed men's lives out there, will basically find themselves out of a job in the future at some point. Reporters working in television networks and channels are like piggies feeding at the trough. And it's about to run dry, and I have absolutely zero sympathy for all of you. You see, I used to work at the shopping network in my early 20s, and I remember how poorly treated and paid many of us guys were, doing technical production, running the audio boards, cameras, and switchers. Yet now, the people that have the production skills are using YouTube to make advertising income, or making videos for clients through freelance. But at the same time, the hosts that were completely done up with Botox and plastic surgery from the shopping channel, from head to toe, treated us like dirt or like office furniture. And since it was a channel for mostly female shoppers, you should have seen how the majority of the female hosts treated the production staff, as well as the token mangina that they threw in for good measure. Working for the lamestream media in my early 20s showed me how gynocentric the whole thing was. And the end of cable as well as traditional television can't come soon enough. What we're about to see is the demise of the gynocentric media. But I have yet to see the rise of men creating programming by ourselves and for ourselves. We will need to get a business model right online before we do so. But I'm looking forward to the days when unemployed reporters and TV personalities try to get online and try to find work by contacting 20-something YouTubers and trying to get exposure from them online. The thing that all you manginas and feminist sympathizer reporters don't get is that people follow the person and not necessarily the station. And without the station to hide behind, to pay you your regular salary, you'll actually have to learn how to hustle. And I'm pretty sure that most of you have never actually had to do that, or perhaps you did it early on in your careers. But now you're going to have to work at it again. And going out and covering events like Slutwalk won't pay your bills anymore. But the one thing that I'm looking forward to the most is all those feminists that seek out attention from the mainstream that won't be getting it anymore. They will be exactly where they should be, invisible. And people that have something important to say, that actually have good content, will finally be heard. It's truly a global village now, and I can't wait to see how things change in the next 5 to 10 years. And no one will ever have to gouge their eyes out ever again if they accidentally see feminists on television ever again. And it'll also be interesting to see how women try to get attention in narcissistic supply once they can't report the news anymore. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for today's video. Thanks, Victor, for your donation, and as for everyone else, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the divorce lawyers away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.